Hi everyone, I just wanted to preface this video with a little preview of what we're doing today, and more importantly a massive thank you for the incredible response on the workbench video. It's been so much fun to read all of your nice comments. And also I wanted to thank everyone for subscribing. I just saw that there is now over 10,000 of us, which feels absolutely surreal in a good way. So yeah, thank you all so much for the support, and let's get into the next build. I've got a new workbench, and I decided to place it away from the wall this time, out in the middle of the room, mostly because I want to be able to place the camera where it is now, for example, and get shots from more different angles to show what I'm working on. A consequence of that, however, is that that's not very convenient. So I want to make 3 framed panels here. Each one will have a pair of these magnetic tool holders, so things will just snap in place. And I think it's going to look pretty nice, so let's get started. First up, I figured out the overall size of the panels. I wanted to get 2 rows of tools into each, so I just laid out the spacing and measured with a little bit of margin. Then I rummaged through my scraps of oak from various projects and just barely managed to squeeze enough pieces out of it. As always, work begins with rough sawing and then planing everything straight and square. To take all the pieces down to width, I tried to clamp them all together and scrub plane them as one. This worked really well. When I plane across the bench like this, you can see how it rocks a bit. It's not a big problem, to be honest, but I'm trying to fix it by finding the flattest spot on the floor. Not quite there yet though. Then, with the parts dimensioned, the next step was to cut a rebate for the back panel. Then I could shoot one end of each piece and mark and trim the final length. I chose to do this after making the rebates because I could then more accurately determine the length of the short pieces that need to be exactly as long as a magnet bar plus rebate walls. Alright, so my parts are squared up, trimmed to length and rebated for the plywood back panel, so it's time to start laying out some joinery. I'm going to join the frame pieces like so, and the joint I've decided to go for is full blind dovetails. It's a joint that I feel like I should know how to do, and I haven't tried it before, so I'm going to take this opportunity for some really low stakes practice. It's of course totally unnecessary to do that kind of joint on something like this, but also because this project doesn't require that sort of strength, it doesn't matter if I mess up a few of the joints, if I get some gaps in them. I have 12 corners to do, so hopefully by the end of that I should be decent at it. We'll see. The first line I'll scribe is basically how long the tails and pins will be. If these were half blinds, this would be the end lap on the pin board, but on full blinds we'll need it on both parts, and on both the end grain and inside face. Then I could saw some waste away on all the pieces. Next I scribed the miter on the front edge and marked the socket using the chisel I would use to chop it out with. I'm doing pins first here because it makes for much easier transferring later. If you do tails first, which is my usual preference, you transfer that onto the end of the pin board, and that gets very difficult to access with a knife when you have the full blind laps there. Pins transfer to the face of the tailboard, which is more accessible. Then I could cut out the tail and the miter on the front edge. The back edge gets cut square though, since it'll be covered by the panel, and I made sure to leave a full pin here and not a mitered pin. Then I have to pare down to the miter lines, and I decided to make a paring jig for this. You could saw directly to the line and skip chisel work altogether, or you could pare freehand, but this seemed like it'd give me the best chance of accuracy. And a test fit. A bit loose in the dovetail, but I felt like I had wrapped my head around the process now, so I sharpened up the chisel for the sockets and got to work on the remaining pin boards. Alright, so all of my 3 frames have been assembled. All the full blind dovetails are done. This first one I did is a little bit wobbly, you know, dovetails are not supposed to do that, but it's gonna be fine with glue, and I view this as practice. as I said, after figuring out the workflow, I was able to batch cut them a little bit, and I also got the accuracy a lot better, so this frame is far more sturdy. They're all dry fit, they will be disassembled for a bit more work. So what I will do now is make little notches here so that I can let in these tool holders, and I'm going to space them out, so something like that. But then I will also do one frame where one of the bars sits much higher up so that I can put my hammers on it as well. So I will now cut out those notches, and then I just have to add the back panel, and then I will be done. And yeah, this is basically a mortise with one wall removed, so I chopped it just like I would a normal mortise, but with a bit easier cleanup of the bottom. Okay, so my frames are glued up and drying. While I'm waiting for that, I'm going to apply some stain to my back panels. I almost never use stain in my projects, but for some reason my brain decided these panels need to be black, so who am I to argue? Then with the frames glued and dried, I can do the final smoothing of the front edges, fleshing up all the joints and giving them a finish-ready surface. I decided to mount the tool holders and back panels now. The sides still need smooth planing, but I felt that would be easier with the panels in place to prevent the boards from bowing under the plane. Since I've done everything with hand tools up to this point, I thought I would go for the slow and silent method here too, just for fun. The brace is actually a super nice way to drive screws. You have plenty of torque and far more control than with an impact driver, so you can stop when the head is perfectly flush every time. And it holds modern hexagonal bits very securely. Then I smoothed the sides now that the frame is stiffened by the panels. It'd be doable before adding the panels, but then I would have to treat the frames like drawers, slipping them over a supporting board, which works fine, but this was a little bit more efficient. Adding a small chamfer, important not to blow out the far corner here, but to come from both directions and feather the cuts into each other. Then I lightly sanded the corner and the inner edges before applying a coat of hard wax oil. To hang the panels, I screwed French cleats to the uprights of the frame. Alright, there we have it. Obviously I'm gonna have to play around a bit with the exact placement of all the tools, but with this system that is super easy. If I realize actually this should go over here because I don't use it all that much. Well, you just saw how easy that was. I don't have all these little blocks that I used to have that I would have to move around as easy as that. And I think it looks pretty sweet too. And I'm really happy with the full blind dovetails as well. I think they turned out, well, better than I hoped, at least. There are some gaps in a few of them, but for this purpose they are a million times stronger than they need to be. For me, this was a really nice opportunity to practice this joint that I've been wanting to try out. I've been a bit intimidated by it. It has some tricky geometry that was a little bit hard to wrap my head around, but now it all makes sense, and I feel like I can scale it up to much wider boards if I want to make a box carcass with full blind dovetails at some point or something like that. But anyway, this is my new tool wall. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.